And now I'll be talking about the conclusion, the recapitulation of the same Mozart piano sonata that I've already discussed for 2 lectures. Let me share my screen with you. The recapitulation begins in measure 94. This is where we simultaneously have a return of the original tonic, C major, and a return of our first idea from the very first measure of the composition. We're going to listen to the entire recapitulation first, and then we will go back to the beginning of the recapitulation and listen to it in smaller sections with me giving some comments as we go. Let's go through this again and think about what we hear. P1 in C major, just like the beginning. Oh, here it is again, but it's in C minor. More chromatic. Back to C major for B2. B2 again. Perfect authentic cadence. Now we're into the transition. But the transition is a little different from what we had before. Okay, notice how we've cadenced in measure 126 on a half cadence, not a half cadence in the key of G, but a half cadence in the main key of C major. The transition, which begins in measure 116, is different in a number of respects from the transition that we had in the exposition. It would actually be worth your while to compare the 2 transitions, the one from the exposition and this one that starts in measure 116. For one thing, this is a little bit shorter than the one in the exposition. This is only 9 measures, whereas in the exposition, the transition was 13 measures. But Mozart does various tricky things to make it sound like he's modulating, and then he doesn't modulate at all. Let me go back and mark in a few other things that we heard. Okay, we heard P1, but in the key of C minor. We heard P2, but in the key of, back in the key of C major. Okay, and here in measure 126, we have a half cadence in C major. Okay, moving on now, we'll listen to the second theme area in the recapitulation. Okay, and it's a little different here because the melody's in the left hand. Now the melody's back in the right hand. This is S2. S2 again. This is a D minor and a cadence in C. And this is the closing material. But right here, measure 152, there's a last presentation of P1. So I think this last four measures is too short to call a coda, but it is a little expansion of the closing section. So I'm going to mark in here P1, exclamation point. Okay, and let's go back and listen to what we're hearing. Okay, so we get S1 in the main key of C major, but with the melody in the left hand. And we get S1 again, this time with the melody in the right hand. S2, S2, and moving us into a perfect authentic cadence in C major. And then we get the closing section again. And the closing section is expanded by having this extra four measures added on, which brings back P1 right at the very end as a punctuation to end the piece. Okay, I hope that you understand what I had to say about the recapitulation. I hope everything makes sense to you. This is a pretty standard example of a classical era sonata form, and we'll be taking a look at a few more, both in class, and you'll also have some to look at for your homework.